Hello, today for review I've got a model by KZ. Probably it's not completely new, it was announced at the end of May, but it's still relatively fresh, and those who follow company news probably already guess, or you can probably maybe someone just reads the video description. Today we will talk about KZ AST. It's their new 24 driver balanced armature earphones, or 12, it depends on how you prefer to count. Usually in the pre-KZ era everyone counted amount of drivers in each earpiece, but then KZ started this tradition to count the total amount of drivers, so 12 or 24 drivers. And I was a bit scared before trying this model, because their previous multi-balanced armature models, ASX and ASF, if I remember right, were tuned pretty taste-based, and actually 10 balanced armature ASX was even worse than 6 balanced armatures, so at that moment KZ proved that usually they do better with less armatures. So I was a bit cautious about the new model, but still I wanted to try it, and price is $130. I will add links to the Linsole shop where I get them from into the description. And actually enough talks, let's have a closer look. In terms of package, it's a traditional KZ, their typical black box that they use for more expensive models. Cheaper ones came usually in a matchbox like plastic package. And that metal plate, AST model name on it. In the accessories set we will get earpieces themselves, stock cable, and two additional pair of tips. So, you know, for $130 probably it can be considered as totally okay. Not a big issue, but definitely they could put more tips in the accessory set, and even maybe some case. So, but it's I'm constantly saying that all when we talk about the KZ models. I don't know why they didn't follow the many buyers' feedback, but anyway. So here they are. In terms of design, it's a new KZ design. Pretty ergonomic shells made of plastic, looks good. Semi-transparent. There are 3 color versions if I remember right. Transparent one, black one, or actually not black, probably dark gray, and the green one. All of them looks pretty good, and this combination of plastic and zinc alloy faceplates, in my opinion, looks pretty fancy. And through the semi-transparent shells you can see that inside there are really many armature receivers. I didn't count them, but you know, I'm pretty confident that amount of receivers corresponds to the declared value, and all of them connected to receivers, because previously in their multi-balanced armature models were ideas that they didn't connect all to the receivers, but then someone did a check on the YouTube, so I'm pretty sure they do that. But of course no one can be totally sure here. Some PCB with crossover, internal wiring, actually pretty interesting model to look. They even have a kind of vent hole on the faceplates. In terms of wearing comfort, they are pretty good. They have proper angle of spouts, so sound isolation is even slightly above average, because the big shell isolate outer noise. Wearing comfort is good, and probably for average and big ears they will be good, and maybe for smaller ones they could be problematic, but I don't think it's highly likely. They have metal spouts with lip for holding the tips and protective grill and all that stuff. Once again, they used these tips with shorter stems. I don't like them, but actually they do their work more or less okay. and build quality is normal for KZ. They used replaceable cables with so-called QDC connectors with recessed pins, and luckily they stopped changing them about 2 years ago, and now they are pretty consistent in this aspect. And I still think that it's one of the best types of connectors for inexpensive earphones, because it provides pretty good durability. Fit nicely and also looks pretty good. Stock cable is also improved. Finally, KZ did that improvement. Maybe it's not something stellar in terms of quality, but it's noticeable improvement, and now I can say that it's probably on par with other models in this price range. It's silver-plated copper, pretty soft and comfortable with ear hooks, of course, but it has low microphonic effect, not getting hard when it's cold outside. Microphone is just so-so, but if you going to use them with smartphone, you can use it for quick calls, but you need to move it closer to your mouth. But of course, results not superb, but acceptable, I think. And metal splitter, and after splitter it goes braided down to the new metal jack, so you can see in terms of cable they did quite an improvement, and I really hope that they will use it in their more affordable models. So nice move here from KZ. Now the final step is to add better accessories. Besides that, all exterior stuff is done really nicely, you can see it yourself. And of course, about the sound, I gave them about 48 hours of burn-in. I didn't expect any changes for balanced armatures, and it didn't happen. And, looking at frequency response plots alone, the changes of AST comparing with that ASF and ASX are pretty small, but the devil is in the details, and it's a good illustration of my traditional thesis that frequency response chart alone tells really really few information about the sound, because you need subjective listening, and you need, if you want to evaluate headphones by measurement, at least you need to look at waterfall plot and maybe some additional charts, because frequency response doesn't tell the whole thing. And with AST, KZ made a noticeable step from the randomly tuned earphones to model that can be probably not that I can recommend, not for everyone, but actually it has a good target audience where it performs well. But let's talk about the sound step by step. I will use FIO M11 limited as an example here, and let's talk. So bass is accented, and KZ really managed to achieve a good balanced armature type of bass. It's pretty fast, has a normal detalization, but at the same time, thanks to the pretty big boost, it delivers a good body and good slam. It has a good depth, it's probably not super tight and super fast and super impactful, but it delivers nice amount of details, it delivers a good weight, a good body, so it's pretty universal. It will show its strengths both with something like double bass and with some synthesized low frequencies that needs to hit hard. So it's not a bass head model probably, but it's a model that can deliver nice amounts of low frequencies. So it's for those who like tasty bass. And at the same time, thanks to a balanced armature nature, it's not sound super bloated, it's not bleeding onto mids, and almost the whole time stays in place. And as an example, I will use a track that I often use as an example of real instruments. It's Pain of Salvation, Chain Sling from their Falling Home acoustic album. They have really tasty bass here. Actually, even if you don't like rock and heavy music, I really recommend you to check out this album. It's unplugged, so it's not super hard and heavy, but at the same time it's done with a good sense of style, typical for the Pain of Salvation, and they definitely put a lot of emotions in their performance, and the recording quality is pretty nice. And these earphones do a good job highlighting the bass in this track, but at the same time not overdoing it and not deliver it in a muddy or veiled way, so it's present and it's a bit accented, but at the same time it's enjoyable and done with style. Mid frequencies are recessed a little bit comparing with bass and treble, but thanks to the balanced armature, they don't appears to be hidden by the bass and by the treble. And actually KZ probably won't be KZ if they would create some typical balanced armature mids. It's definitely not the model for those who need the focus on the micro contrast, not the model for those who need the maximum resolution, who need the focus on the tiniest nuances. No, it's definitely not that case. Mids here are on the warmer side of things, and they have a bit of additional weight, but at the same time they sound with a good amount of details, just not pushing them to the front stage. It's typical warm armature tuning, and it's not that warm as it was before, so it's a step forward in terms of control and resolution, comparing with that 10 driver model, for example. They are done with more taste, because here they have a good dynamics and they are nice in delivering emotions. So almost everything is getting a bit of additional weight, so you'll get more body for the instruments, more weight for the vocal. It's not 100% natural, but if you like a warmer sound signature and comfortable and a bit more intimate representation of vocal, they will do a good thing. Also, they are not really critical for the quality of records, because they won't try to go nitpicking. So they made a step from bloated and veiled mids towards like just warmer mids. And also they have a nice imaginary stage, not super spacious both in width and in depth, but also kind of improvement, so above average. Not highly above average, but still above average. Pretty nice for the warmer sound earphones, in my opinion. So let's go to the next example, and I got Brother Ray, but by Robert Plant and The Strange Sensation. Really like the introduction here, keyboard part, and the next part. It's not the track that requires super detalization, and it's done in a bit vintage style. Of course, you can listen it with something natural and monitoring, but for me this track is losing a bit of charm in this case, and actually this model plays it nicely and in a tasteful and enjoyable way. And treble is another point of improvement, because KZ made a step from their typical splashy, spiky and metallic sounding treble. It's not perfection still, but it's a great and big improvement, and now it's a really well balanced treble. Extension is just slightly above average, and of course there is no audiophilic things like I don't know, layering, great overtone saturation. No, it's just basic treble, but it done nicely with much less metallic sounding, with much less focus on the speed, and with more body. They don't sound as thin as they did before, and gone are that spiky splashes. Maybe for really treble sensitive people it still can be too much treble, but I think that even moderately sensitive people will find treble here is okay. To my ears, I can even enjoy a bit more boost, but it's still good amount, and it's sounding normal for this price tier, totally on par with many other models, and that's another improvement that moves this model to a more to a better balanced sound. And as an example here, another typical track for treble that I use for illustration, it's Sting all this time, and Sting is always about the percussion, some tiny bells, and that minor things really that gives really airy sound, and that's one of the secrets of his music, and this model delivers it not perfectly, but in a pretty acceptable way. Speaking about the pairings, probably you need some digital to analog converter if you want to use them with the smartphone, or if you have a good sounding smartphone, you can use it without that. They are pretty enjoyable in this aspect, but digital to analog converter can boost them a bit. They don't require some, some advanced player because they have noticeable coloration, so just basic player or smartphone with good audio tract or with digital to analog converter. Speaking about the conversions, actually in this price tier, KZ managed to stay a bit aside from the vast majority of models, like, I don't know, FH3 for example, or what we've got that I often use, Big UEYZ Spring 2 for example. They have more focus on the micro contrast, more details on the mids, while this one is a bit on the more on the warmer side of things, and that set them aside. So I can't recall other models, so I don't think there is much sense in comparing them. So if you're interested in some additional comparisons, just feel free to ask. But basically, it's the basic idea here is bit warmer mids and good performing bass and treble. But you need to like warmer mids, of course, and it's a noticeable step forward from their ASF and ASX. And comparing with, for example, ZAX, they have a bit more weight on mids, and at the same time better refined bass and treble. So it's also not 100% step forward, but in many cases it is. So probably I need to summarize this review. It's not a model for everyone, but it's a definitive evolution for the KZ. They managed to create a nice, tasty model for those who need such signature, and this time for me it's still subjective, but for me this price now is pretty fair because for me they deliver that value. It's not a giant killer or not the model overperforming everything, but I really enjoy listening them with many tracks. So thank you for your attention, thank you for listening, and have a nice day.